Okay, so we'll open the meeting and
Here we go. Okay.
so I'll open the meeting. Okay, so this is a meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Orange Township held via audio video conferencing on Wednesday, June 19th, 2024 at 7:16 p.m. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Commissioner Carroll. Commissioner Dow.
Present.
Commissioner Light.
Here.
Commissioner Matthews. Absent. Commissioner Morrell. Absent. Commissioner Simmons.
Present.
Commissioner Velez. Absent. Commissioner Wells.
Here.
Also present is Joyce Lanier, the secretary, and Janine Bauer, the attorney. The requirements of NJSA 10:4-9 et sec, the Sunshine Law, has been met. A notice of this meeting was sent to the Star Ledger, published in the record transcript on December 14th, 2023, posted on the council's website, the city's website, and filed in the office of the city clerk. There are no minutes for tonight. Public hearing, the public will be allowed to question witnesses testifying on behalf of the application for a certificate of appropriateness after the presentation is completed and after questions from the commission during the public hearing on the application. Each person addressing the commission shall give his or her name and address in audible tone for the record, and unless further time is granted by the presiding officer, shall limit his or her address to 5 minutes unless the comments are repetitive of other witnesses, in which case the presiding officer may further limit the comment period. New business. Attorney Bauer, are we going to start with A, or are we going to start with 617 Scotland Road?
I think we should ask Mr. Webster what he would like to do.
I'm going to start with 617, if that's possible.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that sounds good. Guys, if I could just ask, I mean, just as kind of as a courtesy to all of us, unless you've got your hair in curlers or you're stepping out of the bathtub, can you please turn on your screens? Or if you at least have a screen where you've got a screensaver with your image or something. We've got a lot of people on tonight, and thank you. You know, more than half of them are, I'm looking at a blank screen. There we go. Welcome. All right, take us out. Let's go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elnardo Webster. I'm an attorney at the law firm Connell Foley. I'm representing the applicant this evening. I've got with me, and I don't know what the protocol is if I have to get them sworn in. I'm not sure if we need to get people sworn or qualified, but I'm going to lead with my architect, Antonio Aiello. He's on, and I'm going to ask him to essentially share his screen and walk us through the presentation that we give to the planning board, and let you guys take a look at it. So Antonio.
Okay. He needs to be sworn. Do you have any other witnesses on 611 and 617?
I do not.
All right, Mr. Aiello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will provide to the commission tonight on this application will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
And are you a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
I am, yes, since 2007.
License is active?
Yes, it is.
You're accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. Antonio, you've had a chance to design this building. Scotland Ventures is the developer. The project is located at 611, 617 Scotland Road and 517, 519 Beach Street, which is designated as block 6105, lots 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the official tax maps of the city of Orange. The property is located within the Central Valley Redevelopment Plan, District 4 of the Orange Valley Historic District. The property was previously improved with 2 commercial buildings and 2 two-story detached dwellings. To date, the commercial buildings have been demolished, leaving only the 2 residential structures. The applicant is seeking to demolish the existing residential structures and construct a new 6-story multifamily dwelling. The building shall consist of 78 units and 78 units of 78 units with parking. The applicant received preliminary and final site plan approval of the planning board on December 14th, 2023, and was memorialized on January 25th, 2024. I'm going to ask Aiello to walk us through the design, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Everybody, thank you so much for having us. Leonardo, thank you for the introduction. As Leonardo mentioned, the project is at 617 Scotland Road is predominantly what we're referring it to. It is on the corner of Scotland Road and Beach Street. Consists of the lots 2, 3, 4, and 5, where there was originally a fire to the garage that was there, and then there's 2 additional single-family homes that are currently vacant that will be removed in order to accommodate the new project. The building itself is 6 stories. It has a basement with parking and then a ground floor that will have additional parking, lobby, and utilities. 2nd through 6th floor are residential floors. As you see here, this is the location very close to the train line. I'm going to scroll through the project. We have here the basement level, which is going to be accessed from Beach Street with the parking access. We have additional parking on the 1st floor here that you would access through Scotland Road for a few more vehicles, and then the lobby, transformer room, and some of the utilities. The remaining utilities would be on the basement level. We have here the dwelling units. We have a lounge on the 2nd floor, a fitness area on the 3rd floor, and then the upper floors have all residential units around the entire perimeter of the structure. We're undulating the facade, introducing balconies throughout the building in order to break up the facade. And then once you get to the 5th floor and 6th floor, the corner has been taken off of the building in order to minimize the entire scale of the structure on that property. And this is the 6th floor, and then a standard roof. I'm going to jump here to the exterior facade. We have here the building as it's seen both from the corner of Scotland and Beach Street, as well as from the train. We have here what we try to, even though it is more of a modern structure, it's a basic interpretation of a historic basis design with tripartite system with a ground floor masonry clad system, intermediate floors with a stucco lighter finish, and then the upper level is the hardy cement system panels along the upper floor and make it lighter. Again, this is where the corner has been removed in order to reduce the overall scale at the predominant corner there. On the back, it's all James Hardie cement siding systems, panels. Again, lots of windows, lots of light going in there. We're perforating the garage level areas with storefront and metal cladding perforated systems in order to open up the facade so it's a lot more pedestrian friendly and doesn't create a closed off environment at that garage level area. And then as you can see here, we have an inset at the lobby area, and then the smaller garage off of Scotland Road. As we mentioned, 78 dwelling units over 6 stories, 58 parking spots in total. And we have here the building elevations As you can see here, how the building facade works on the both Scotland Road and Beach Street elevation. There's a substantial drop in elevation, which allows us the basement without imposing too much height on Scotland Road. And then, as I'd mentioned before, we have punched in recessed balconies along the facade and different materials that break up the facade and reduce the overall scale of the building. That concludes my overall presentation on the building. I will leave the front facade and rear facade rendering up, and thank you for your time.
Ms. Bauer, that's my witness for this evening, Mr. Chairman. That's my witness. I'm happy to have him answer any questions you or the public might have.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. One question I would have, is it possible, I understand, well, a couple of things. I understand removing the corner of the, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th and 6th floors.
Yes.
Is it possible to do more of that in a creative way without losing your intended occupancy spatially? In other words, removing the corner, okay, but is it possible to have more of an interesting setback at those two levels that kind of continues around? It could be, undulating in and out or what have you. I mean, I get what you're trying to do there, but I think if you're going to try and attempt to do that, maybe continue it along the Scotland Avenue and I'm blanking the side street there.
Beach Street.
The Beach Street, yeah, especially because as you go down Beach Street, the grade drops, and so the facade on Beach Street, as you leave from Scotland heading down, begins to loom higher and higher by the foot. You follow?
Yes, absolutely. The nice thing is that we do have the elevated train system that runs by over there, so it doesn't create too much of an impact of the homes on the other side of the train tracks. If we try to increase that setback, it does impact the layout and the overall bedroom count on the buildings.
Okay.
What we had done originally was, in addition to, like I mentioned, we had to cut off the corner, but we had also punched out all of these balconies in order to reduce the overall feel of the mass of the building. And then if I can zoom in a little bit, we also kind of created these little jogs in the facade, both vertically and horizontally, to additionally break it up. In order, if we were to try and reduce additional square footage, it would impact the overall project scope, unfortunately.
Okay. And then with regard to a modern look, I think, and I'll ask my fellow commissioners to join in. Of course, as you know, I mean, our main focus is the view from the streetscape.
Sure.
I think that, and as they would tell you, I have a pet peeve with new construction and renovations or anything of any kind. No one seems to be able to figure out where it's coming from, but we're all being led down a rabbit hole that shades of gray are the way to go. Can we do something other than gray and white? Can it be a combination of and I don't know. I mean, this is, as a fellow architect, that's where, have fun with this. But I guess that's what I'm saying. Can you guys have some more fun with this? Your rear elevation from the train, which is ironically where a lot of people that we would want to entice to come to Orange, because they're coming on the train or passing through on the train, maybe some balconies back there, do something kind of, is there any way to kind of, have some more fun with this? That's what I'm saying.
So I just want to make sure I understand the rules. So my understanding at this point for this hearing that responsible for determining whether the existing structures have any architectural significance, which we take the position that they don't. a lot of the questions you're answering or asking, Mr. Simmons, are questions that I think are more properly venued at the zoning board or planning board. And because we've kind of already checked that box, the design is kind of designed at this point. So I don't want to be rude, and I want to be deferential to the board. And I guess I'm directing this question to Ms. Bauer. I'm asking kind of how does this board, kind of operate? And, I'm a little confused, quite honestly, as to the jurisdiction, because my understanding is that it's, hey, does the existing structure have any architectural significance? And if not, that kind of checks the boxes. So we're taking the position that the existing structures are burnt down, they're vacant, they're abandoned, they're derelict, and
Well, I would say this, Mr. Webster, and it's a very good question. I'm actually glad you're asking it. It's twofold. Are there existing structures that are architecturally significant to the historic fabric?
right.
That has been decided outside of our purview as no, there aren't. I mean, that being said, the two structures that are there, I think, if we were to have been asked, we would agree that they're not. But then the next question that gets asked is, and we see this as a courtesy pass and review before us, is the design of the new structure going to contribute or detract from its presence in a historic district, in a historic location?
Okay.
And so that's why the things I was suggesting are, and indeed they're just suggestions, can we have something that we all agree plays it forward as a new building with a new vibe and contributes, but that contributes, that doesn't look like it's just a new structure plopped, you follow me.
I do. Okay.
So Mr. Webster, in answer to your question, this should have come before the HPC for advice, for an advisory report under Section 110 of the Municipal Land Use Law. The fact that it was not referred by the planning board to us is unfortunate. But because it's in the Orange Valley Historic District, you have applied for a certificate of appropriateness. So regardless of the fact that it didn't come before us for an advisory report to the planning board, this commission has to decide on the certificate of appropriateness because it's in a designated district. And that takes it out of the advisory, since that's already passed anyway, category.
I think I understand between you and Mr. Simmons kind of what the scope is and what we're trying to accomplish. This is my first time in the Historic Commission on it, so I just wanted to make sure I understood. I think I understand.
No problem, Mr. Webster. I think, I'll speak just for myself, and then I will shut up and let the other commissioners chime in. I personally am not opposed to, I think it's a great, the idea of the project, good. Just would like to, weigh in with regard to the look, that's all.
If I can chime in, Mr. Simmons, in regards to your questions, as far as adding colors and other areas of brightness to the building, unfortunately, the gray and the white are safe bet. They later down the road, historically, it won't seem as dated, unless you're doing a specific style, in my opinion, like a stick shingle or a certain type of design system. A lot of times those colors, when left on a structure, can eventually fade, even seem dated a few years down the road. So the white and the gray, in my opinion, play a very important role in trying to keep the project looking the same further down the road. That's one of my biggest concerns when designing a lot of these buildings.
Yeah, one of our concerns, and point well taken, Ms. Ayala, but one of our concerns is that because we're focusing on neighborhoods and historic districts, that with the addition of each one of our new projects as they're happening, at a certain point, there's a tipping point where they begin to detract from the historical fabric and character of the district, especially if they are no longer giving even a wink and a nod to anything historical within the district that they are now being placed. And so while one of these might be fine, you and I both know we're foolish to sit here and think this is going to be the only one that's going to happen. And so as they begin to multiply, the historic district itself evaporates almost overnight for all of those things that are, you know, historical characteristics on the old structures and historical characteristics that are being channeled with some of the new structures. I'm not saying make this look like it was built in 1923. What I'm saying, you know, but what I'm saying is can it look like it's joining respectively a historic district as a brand new 2024-25 building. That's all.
Point taken. Thank you.
Any other commissioners wish to weigh in here, please do.
Yeah, I do. Were you given a copy of our guidelines and our documents that describe historic districts and what we're looking to accomplish in those districts? Were you given any of those
Yes.
documents?
Yes, I was provided those documents. I did read through it. There was only a small section based on the new construction. Most of it was based on the renovation, restoration, and reconstruction of existing or older historic structures.
Okay, listen, just you know, out of the blue, was brick face considered as opposed to hardy board?
Originally, yes, but again, because of the scale of the building, we were trying to lighten the building. We were worried that too much brick would just make it a much heavier structure overall. That's why we went with the stone clad base on the first floor and the lighter materials on the upper levels.
Okay, I mean, to me, it's you know, it's just like if you look at the other buildings in some of the other communities, in Montclair, for example, or South Orange or Glen Ridge, at least on the face of the building, they're doing brick face. Toward the back, they're doing hardy board and whatever else. But the way you've got it designed here now, it doesn't fit into the historic district at all. I can see the stone on the bottom, but that's very little.
Again, it was as I mentioned, it was in order to lighten up the overall feel and scale of the building. Because of the area, I understand that it's in a historic district adjacent to this property. There weren't a lot of buildings for this to basically bounce off of, and I was worried that the use of the red brick not only make it look heavy, but it was just almost like mimicry without proper detail to the structure.
Okay, but to me, the hardy board is just, you know, whatever. Okay.
I have to agree with Commissioner Wells, and I mean, I hear the theory that this gray and white will age better, but we're
No,
seeing
it
way
won't.
too much of it in historic districts. And my gut reaction when I see all this gray is these are flips. These were, you know, they don't fit in with the district, and it's
At all.
at all. And this building is, you know, I mean, you've gotten the approval for the scale. Its appearance is very stark, and doesn't fit in with the overall character of the neighborhood. And I agree with Commissioner Wells. Brick face might be better. I mean, any attempt at ornamentation, it kind of looks like a warehouse. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, this the structure and the shape of the building, fine, but it just aesthetically, and we get to rule on the aesthetics. That's what our bailiwick is. It falls short.
I have a question. Is there any green space other than the green space that's around the perimeter?
Yes, we have not only the landscape along the perimeter of both Scotland Road and Beach Street. We also have some green space along the back terrace and also some public deck area for the tenants as well.
And that is, okay, go back. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, in this area here, yes, in the back. So this area has green space and a tenant usable deck area.
And the large wall enclosing that was.
That's just the basement level. The grade is actually much higher in this area. The wall isn't as substantial. The wall is actually less, but this is the basement area where all the parking is underneath.
Ah, okay, okay. I mean, and again, guys, please, here, I guess our concerns are, there's not a problem with the project. It's just, what can we do to, address the look is all.
To me, the look should give some nod to historic, and to me, this doesn't at all.
Yeah.
I like the idea of providing since it's a new structure, it's a different structure compared to a lot of what else is up and down that road right now. It provides an anchor that a lot of the historic structures in the area can kind of be better appreciated when in contrast to a new structure.
Well, I would say this, Mr. Isle, let's not kid ourselves. In that area, there really isn't any major, let the heavens open up historic structure. Let's take a pause and look at it for a moment type thing.
Sure. Absolutely.
But I think what I'm hearing my fellow commissioners saying, what I would say to you, even as a fellow architect in our office, our focus is heavily with historic textures and things like that, feelings and whatnot. I would, is there a way to make this stand out? And so then people can look at this and go, wow, it wasn't so much that they were trying to blend in. It's that this is a new structure in a historic area that really tastefully belongs. And that other new structures can look to as a standard, I guess. Right now, some of the things that you guys are currently showing on your exterior elevations and facades, we're trying to honestly pull away from or deter as far as having replicated. For instance, basic hardy board, a lack of an articulated cornice at the top there. You've got
Exactly.
just that large area that wraps around. I mean, there's little things that you could do with this, I presume, in a design charrette on a Friday at 4:30. As it is, just some little tweaks to it that might make it more acceptable. I mean, in your rear elevation, I hear you with what that is supposed to be, but that rear elevation, when I look at it in conjunction with the floor plan, looks like a huge privacy wall. It almost looks like a jail wall on the back end. And I know it's not, but it's kind of, you know, there's just some things we're trying to, you know, we'd like to see happen that I think, you know, as a fellow designer, I would put the challenge before you.
To me, I think right above the fourth floor, that's a cornice. I'm not really sure what that is. That could be a decorative cornice at that point. And on the top of the fifth floor, that one could also be. That looks like what, aluminum siding almost. You know, when it could be a nice cornice.
Noted, thank you.
So I guess my question is to, you know, Janine, where do we go from here as far as, since this was a little bit of the horse before the cart?
Well, if Mr. Webster wants to proceed, we go to public hearing.
Okay.
I'm going to proceed.
Open the public
I have
hearing.
one more question. I'm sorry, one more question. Is it going to be commercial on the bottom?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so we've gone to public hearing then. Anyone wish to be recognized and who has a comment? Question, comment, concern? Okay, so I'll take the radio silence.
Motion to close that public hearing?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dow, or was,
Yes.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed.
All right. What's next? Let's do it.
Well, you need a motion on the application.
Yeah, is there a motion for this application for,
Well, I would say this, I mean, before we motion, is it possible to, I mean, you know, Mr. Aiello, have you and Mr. Webster kind of, you know, heard? I don't think we're, what are your thoughts on what we said?
You know, we're in a little bit of a rock and a hard place, because we do have, you know, site plan approval. And so, the building has already been, you know, granted, a tax abatement. So, you know, we're kind of, you know, almost at the finish line. And I know this is, as, Council Bauer said, we put the cart before the horse. This is something we should have done, you know, 2 years ago, essentially. So it's a little hard for us right now to change. So, you know, I presumed, unfortunately, based upon the comments that we heard this evening, it's going to be a negative referral or a negative, you know, letter from the historic. And, you know, I think that that's what's going to happen. And I think that that's where it's going to land. But I don't think that there's an opportunity for us at this point, based upon where we are in the development cycle, to really amend the plan. I mean, I'll speak to the developer. Maybe there's an opportunity to change some of the colors. I mean, the colors are, you know, a little bit flexible. I mean, the brick and the hardy board, and, you know, those things can be tweaked a little bit. I'll speak to them and see if that's something they're interested in doing. But procedurally, right now, we're a little bit between a rock and a hard place, because the developer wants to start construction. And unfortunately, the way this process works, you know, the planning board's already approved it. So, you know, although your recommendations are probably pretty good, you know, and we should have heard them 2 years ago. It's hard at this point to kind of amend the application, and kind of go back and have that conversation. So I'm not sure, other than essentially, you know, a negative referral based upon the current plan. You know, we'll talk to city planning, we'll talk to our client, but I'm not sure right now that there's much I can do to offer to change it.
I just have
Would
one
it-
other question. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this market rate housing?
It is market rate, yes.
Okay.
Would it be possible to, because I think the things we're discussing don't change the zoning requirements. They don't change the occupancy. They don't change the footprint. They don't change any variances or anything. We're just talking fenestration, look, finishes,
Cosmetics.
exterior, you know, cosmetics and material. Would it be possible for us to issue a contingent approval based upon basically a redesign of the facades without adjusting anything that needs to be revisited at zoning or variance?
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure, again, this is my first historic commission in Orange. I'm not sure what you can and can't do procedurally. I mean, look, the reality is that I do think that, you know, some of the concerns that you have with the kind of color scheme and design were definitely things that if we had heard, you know, before the planning board hearing, we probably would have been able to tweak. The problem is that, as you know, that when you go to planning, you actually provide them with the materials, you provide them with, you know, kind of a sample of the plank and whatnot. So I'd have to go back and kind of look and see, you know, administratively what we did, and we'd have to talk to the planning department and see what they'd be willing to kind of change administratively. But, you know, I'm happy to go through that exercise. You know, I'm happy to have that conversation. I will tell you, and this is again part of the problem, is that city planning and the city's planner, albeit not architects, did have substantial input on the design and color scheme of the building. They essentially, you know, kind of wanted, this is the design and the color that they wanted. So there's a little bit of a conflict, you know, kind of between what you're saying and what they're asking for. Obviously, you know, your board has jurisdiction to make these kind of decisions, and, you know, they're in the department. So it's a little bit of an issue, but, you know, we did have probably 3 or 4 what we call TRC meetings, which is technical review committee meetings with them, where this design and these colors were kind of hashed out. So it's a little bit, and if you read the transcript, you know, of the hearing, you know, you can see that there was a lot of discussion. So, and that's why I'm not sure, Mr. Simmons or Chairman Simmons, about when you say, hey, we're just going to look at the facade and that's something that you could do administratively. I'm just not sure that that's the case. So I hear what you're saying and I do appreciate it. And, you know, I will take what this board does officially, and I'll look and see what, you know, we can and can't do. And if it's something that we can do and it makes everybody happy, you know, we'll have that conversation. But I will tell you that, you know, there was a lot of feedback from the municipality and their planning and economic development departments on how this building kind of looks and sits and the color scheme associated with it.
That's unfortunate, because those all sound like very productive meetings, none of which we were invited to.
Right.
Which is why, you know, I appreciate you telling us that we had constructive input, and I don't think we're asking for a whole hell of a lot here. That, you know, I would, you know, I would defer to Janine. I would really like to have this put back to them somehow or another, where we are in favor of the project. However, we would like these particular things to be looked at again. And, I think that, well, it's just unfortunate. It's not your fault. It's not Mr. Ayala's fault, but it's just unfortunate. Janine, what's our options here?
You do not have the option that you would like. You don't get to refer the application back to anybody.
Okay.
If Mr. Webster wants to proceed to a vote, and he seems to understand what that means, there's either a motion to approve or a motion to deny.
And if we deny this, what happens? Based on everything he just said.
I'm not really sure what happens, but I think what happens is that the denial of the certificate of appropriateness will be of no legal significance, because while the application should have been referred by the planning board to the HPC, and that is mandatory under section 110, section 110 also says that if it is not referred, that's not an impediment to the planning board going forward into the planning board's decision. And therefore, if I analogize a denial by this board to that situation, I would say, it's a piece of paper, but it's not a piece of paper that is going to result, except that the, sort of in a voluntary way with whatever Mr. Webster's client is willing to consider.
Okay. So I guess what's left, team, is we put this to a vote.
I mean, you could approve it with conditions, but it doesn't sound like those conditions are acceptable. You could deny it with conditions, but again, that's kind of just the other side of the glass.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer an approval with conditions, and, to the extent that we can satisfy those conditions, both administratively and, kind of process and economically where we are in the process, I'd be happy to, kind of talk to everyone and see, kind of where we could get. Yeah. See, here's the problem. We actually, if you could go back to that page, Mr. Ayala, you'll see,
yeah, of course. I'm sorry.
you'll see the materials board. So like when we go through this process, we actually walk them through, here's the actual materials that we're building with, perforated metal, metal panels, the colors of the hardy board. Like, this is all actually approved as part of the resolution, Mr. Simmons. That's the challenge that we have. So in order for us to kind of say, hey, we're going to do something different on the facade, it's something that I'm not sure, we can just say, hey, we're going to do it and just have it be administratively, amended. That's the challenge that I have.
So you couldn't tweak the design and keep the same materials. I mean, I get this. This is what we do all day in my office as well. And it's just, I guess what I'm finding frustrating is I'm looking at this and this is great. But, and I think we all agree, we should have been at that table 2 years ago as well.
Right.
To at least be able to think out loud as, practicing, designers, architects, and things like we have on our board, not so much on the planning board, to ask some of the questions and bring up some of the issues we brought up, and actually have some fun, if you will, with Mr. Ayala's team in creating a really good design. I'm not saying this is not a good design. I'm just saying, there could be some things to make it better for Orange. So I get it. But what I would ask, and this was a question for Mr. Ayala, do you think, based on what we said tonight, you could work within your toolbox here, as laid out on this sheet, of materials, so you're not having to change that. You're not having to change, really reinvent the wheel, but are there little tweaks you could do that would be a strong wink and a nod to some of our comments this evening, pulling from what you have here on, on this sheet?
Materialistically, sure. I'm sure we'd probably be able to do play around with it, do something else. Again, it's all about what the planning board, I guess, is going to have their say on it. But of course, absolutely, as you know, to alter the materials at this stage would not be the end of the world. Would it be more work and figuring out some color schemes and stuff like that? Of course, absolutely, it can be done. As far as what the schedule looks like, and what the other the rest of the municipality has to say, that's I don't know.
I mean, and then going even further and bending over backwards to the point of, an obscene contortionist on this board. What I'm saying is even if you have to stick with your materials per Mr. Webster's comments, and I appreciate them, in other words, you don't have to go and get reapproval for materials and things like that. Could you then still, with these materials, rework the exterior facades with some of the comments we said?
I'd have to oh, go ahead, Leonardo. So
Yes, so here's my challenge, and again, I'm happy to.
I mean, I'm trying to work with you guys. That's the
right. And what I'm saying is that I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I appreciate the contortions that you're trying to take, trying to make. The challenge that we have is that the process is not as it's intentionally not as flexible as we're trying to have a conversation about, right? We actually, when we make these presentations, we say, here's the building, and here are the materials that we're going to put in the locations we're going to put, and here are, James Hardy seagrass. Like we're not just saying they're gray. We're actually listing kind of a brand and a finish. Equitone. Blah blah blah. We have panels of color swatches. So we're not allowed to just change those things without some administrative process. So for instance,
no, I'm sorry, don't misunderstand me, Mr. Ross. I totally agree, and I understand that. What I'm saying is can you work with your architect's office, keep these materials, but for instance, one of the things that we talked about was, rather than having just a plain, and I'm just calling this out, I don't know the full dimensions looking at the drawings, but the cornice that runs around the top on this building is just a plain flat cornice. Right. Well, the material for that cornice, we're not questioning the material. What we're saying is, can that cornice be designed to be a little more articulated with the current materials? And I'm thinking yes. You follow me?
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not an architect. I don't know exactly what you're saying or what you mean. So I'm going to defer. But I'm looking at the panel, and it basically says our cornice is where it's located, and it says we're going to do it in an alucopond or equivalent metal panel cornice or cladding. So, so if you're saying that that's something that can be tweaked and changed within that process and use those materials and be okay, that's fine. But here's what I'm saying, Mr. Simmons. What I actually think is that what you said is something different, and without necessarily making the contortion. What I'm saying is that I'm going to speak to the client. I'm going to speak to the town, and my challenge is that I heard what you said, but what you're saying is not necessarily what the town's professional said. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of make everybody less unhappy, and still kind of move a project forward. So what I think would be helpful is for you to say, hey, here's our approval, and these are the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 things that we think need to be improved or made, kind of more appropriate to comply with the historic kind of feel of the district, and kind of list those things out. And then I'll take that list and go talk to the client, go talk to the town and say, hey, here's some things that the Historic Commission wanted to have happen. Which of these things can you guys buy into, number one, conceptually? And then number two, what can you do? What would you be willing to do essentially as an administrative amendment? And that's kind of my thinking as to how we get to where we get to. if Antonio can tweak things to, and you guys can maybe have an architectural conversation, you know, online or offline or in the resolution, identifying what you want, you know, be happy to kind of work those things as well.
I'm fine with that. I think, yeah. Fellow commissioners, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I think that's about as best as we're going to get, given the, you know, the bureaucratic situation we're in right now.
I agree.
I agree too.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if Wilson really for us, in person material, we wouldn't come against this all, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and again, Mr. Webster, I think what you're hearing from all of us, which is why when I say contortion, we are, please don't get me wrong. I think as a group and a body, we are in favor of the project. We're just saying, you know, we'd like some of these things looked at. That's all.
And again, I appreciate that, and I'm going to tell you, you know, obviously, you know, this group has, you know, kind of a lot more experience in design than probably the planning board. And, you know, I think that the challenge here is how to get you guys integrated into the process a little earlier on, so that all these things that you've identified and the considerations that you're identifying can be incorporated in those designs at that point. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, this is probably, you know, the fourth or fifth version of this plan. And, you know, had your design considerations been, in, you know, kind of upfront, I'm sure a lot of them could have easily been included in the construct, to be quite honest.
Okay, so
I mean,
okay.
I'm going to tell you, and this is just for what it is. We had a conversation with them about essentially an all brick building, and they said no. So, I mean, you know, would that maybe be historic? Yeah, but there was a conversation about that, and it was not, and that was not something that the planning staff wanted as far as what we were designing.
So Janine, I guess, can we issue an approval with contingencies or things to be looked at?
I can't articulate a motion that says things to be looked at.
Right. Right.
Mr. Chairman, if you,
how do we issue an approval and then incorporate in that the verbiage of the approval what you just heard Mr. Webster and I kind of go back and forth about?
well, I guess you could say something like, motion to approve the project, with respect to site location, mass, and height. I mean, those are not, that's not our bailiwick. I'm sure Mr. Webster knows that, but I'm just sort of reciting the zoning considerations, you know, as a basis for then saying conditioned upon the applicant.
Janine,
I don't know.
I think if I could look, I would do this. I mean, I think the document, I mean, I think the resolution has got to give a little bit of the history. It's got to say, you know, kind of the referral wasn't made timely, that, you know, as a result, the application was approved and and we can walk through the procedural history, and then I can say, you know, the board considered that and they approved the application conditionally, and here are the conditions, and then you lay out the architectural or design considerations that the board has as part of those conditions. And if we can't satisfy those conditions, we can't satisfy those conditions, but I think at least they're memorialized. And I think the history and the conversation that we had tonight about kind of the procedural challenges to these changes, I think that has to be captured in that document.
I don't have any problem. Believe me, I write very detailed resolutions. And the procedural history is well understood, but when we get to the conditions, what I've written down is 5 categories.
Okay.
The arrangement of materials, the design itself, the articulation, the decoration, and the colorway. Those are the categories that I have. I don't have specific suggestions other than the the presentation of the rear facade, or I guess there's really two facades. I'll call it the train viewable facades, and the cornice, or what would have been a cornice if it wasn't just a flat metal panel. But otherwise, unless we're gonna sit here all night, we're not gonna design the building, and I don't think you want us to do that anyway. So all I can do is suggest a motion to approve conditioned on the applicant considering changes in those categories.
Yeah.
Works for me.
And then it sounds like, Mr. Webster, you will work with your client to convince him to.
I'm just not
I'm-
concerned. I just want to make myself clear before people either jump on that idea or not as a motion. I'm not sure that categories doesn't actually provide guidance. If Mr. Aiello and Mr. Webster feel like they've heard enough commentary to feel that they have some guidance, that's fine. But like I said, we can't design it here.
Right.
Again, I'm not an architect. I don't feel like I've heard a lot. I've heard some questions, and I've heard some challenges from the board saying it's what the design that they've seen they're not particularly fans of. But I really haven't heard what they'd like to see or things that they'd like to see. And the reason I'm saying that is because, again, I think it's a learning process. We're doing other projects in this area, and I'd like to kind of hear that just for our own edification. But I also do want to kind of go back to the town and just have the conversation and say, hey, your historic commission is looking for buildings that would look more like this, and I'd like to, and I think that it's worth the exercise. I mean, I don't think it's worth 2 hours, but if it's half an hour where you kind of lay out some of that, what that vision is, because the ordinance really doesn't, and it doesn't. So, to the extent that there is a consensus among you guys as to what you'd like to see or have a preference, or even if it's just, hey, we like this building in this town, and your multifamily buildings should look more like that. Even that's helpful, to be quite honest.
And I'm sure I know I speak for the rest of the commission. We're happy to do that, Mr. Webster. And that we can do that certainly going forward. Even if it's well, I'll just say that we're happy to do that. Now, I guess with regard to this, I'm just trying to figure out how to land this tonight. So I think we need
something more specific than listing 5 areas.
Right.
The attorney needs more specifics to take to his client, and certainly if he's going to be approaching the planning board, we need to have specifics. So what we need is some mechanism, I think, where maybe you and the architect can sit down and come up with some specifics that could be incorporated.
Okay. Certainly we can do that. I don't know if does that have to happen right now, Janine, or can we, or that can happen like tomorrow in a phone call or something?
Oh, it doesn't happen to happen now. I mean, I assume Mr. Webster's client hasn't noticed a proceed date, but
I mean, look, the reality is that I think it's something that can happen tomorrow, and we can write it up that, Janine and I could work on the language that says, these changes or these recommendations will be, we'll have, will be reviewed by the historic commission subcommittee or something like that. I mean, we can figure it out. I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be done tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying to you, it's kind of I'm stepping back a little bit, saying, not so much part of this application, but kind of as a community of development professionals who have a number of projects in this area and kind of more in the pipeline, would like to hear what you guys want to see, to be quite honest, because hopefully I'd like to get on the front end of this conversation for some of the projects that are in the pipeline.
And that's the best paragraph I've heard all night.
Yeah.
Totally agree, Mr. Webster.
As you know, this should have come to.
It should
if
have
it's
come
in
to us
project,
first.
It should have come to us first, and there has been a pattern of it not coming to us at all.
Well, the thing is,
We all,
guys.
we all live here, and
Okay, let's not get into that.
Yeah, yeah,
There should be a motion on the table. Do you want me to suggest one?
yes, please.
I would ask the commission, somebody to move to approve the project conditioned on and subject to further discussions on the subject of materials arrangement, design of the facade, articulation, decoration, and colorway.
Motion, I'll motion.
second,
On the motion? No one on the motion, roll call?
Oh, roll call.
Commissioner Carroll? Is absent. Commissioner Dowd?
Yes.
Commissioner Light?
yes,
Commissioner Matthews? Absent. Commissioner Morrell? Absent. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes,
Commissioner Velez? Absent. And Commissioner Wells?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed, 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome. So we'll be in touch directly. Sooner rather than later. And thank you guys for blatantly put coming before us even when you really didn't have to, if you wanted to move forward.
We're trying to be good. We're trying to be good citizens. It's part of
Very good.
Appreciate it.
applaud that intention.
Yeah, very good.
Thank
All
you
right,
guys for everything. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. We have one more, is it?
Yeah.
To look at? Okay.
For you?
Our next application is Morrow Street Holdings, 566-588 Morrow Street. And I see I'm trying to see, I think Mr. Garber is here. Mr. Garber, Richard, are you going to do the hearing tonight? I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Because,
I'm here, Leonardo. You may not just see. Yeah, I'm here with the camera on.
Okay,
How are you?
I wasn't sure who was leading because we had a couple conversations about it, but I'm glad to see you here. Thank you.
Yep, of course.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elnardo Webster. I'm an attorney at the law firm Connell Foley. We represent the applicant, Morrow Street Holdings. The developer of the proposed project is located at 566-588. I'm sorry, 566-588 Morrow Street and 567-585 Morrow Street and 507-515 South Jefferson. I'll take a pick ball. Take a pick ball. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Leonardo.
Yeah, you're still there.
Sure, I couldn't see the screen. I apologize. Which is designated as block 6003, lots 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, and 12, 13, 14, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Property is located in Central Valley Rehabilitation Area, District 2, Zone 2, and is governed by the Central Valley Development Plan. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing residential and commercial structures on the site and construct a new 6-story mixed-use development, which will include 2 separate buildings connected by a second-floor sky bridge, which will house the tenant amenity space. The building should consist of 202 units and 2,000 square feet of ground floor retail in building, which we're referring to in Building B. The parking will be 1-to-1. The applicant has received preliminary site plan approval for the planning board on September 27, 2023. Was memorialized on October 25th, 2023. I have this evening with me Richard Garber, who is a architect and architectural professor, and he's going to walk us through with, I guess, Ms. Bauer gets him qualified as our architect and our expert this evening.
Mr. Garber, are you the only witness?
Yes,
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide on this application tonight to the commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
And you're licensed in New Jersey as an architect?
That's correct. Renews every July 31st.
I guess it's active, then you're accepted.
Thank you very much. So I must say that the discussion I just witnessed was fascinating, and I do think that we find ourselves in a little bit of the same boat. I hope through my presentation I can share with you some of the cues and some of the ideas we have about developing this building while citing the older structures that will be removed. Now, our site ends up being here. And what's interesting about this is we have building A, which is a small building that is sited somewhere over here, if you could see my mouse, on Nassau Place in Morrow. And building B, which is the larger building, which comes all the way out and touches Jefferson, right? So these are twin buildings being developed. And as Mr. Webster said, we do have a sky bridge connecting them, which is really quite cool on Morrow Street. And there's been obviously active discussions with the city on making that happen. I wanted to start with this image because, and there was something said about this in the last application, that in terms of, it seems like the board is really interested in us kind of finding moments around us to refer to that really speak to a kind of context. And what's interesting here is this is a larger building, and the redevelopment plan that happens to be spatially super positioned with the historic boundaries really talks about lot consolidations and larger buildings, right? Now, what strikes me about your guidelines is they are very, very articulate in how one maintains homes, houses, that kind of thing. And I do want to say that while, there are homes here, many of them are derelict and will be demolished, I do want to point to larger structures that kind of bound the Jefferson and the Chesney Street corridors, which I think are from a scalar point of view, more consistent with what we are trying to do here. And as such, I think are somewhat fair game for our, for points of reference. Now, what we're trying to do, this is a rendering, and I hope everyone has seen these plans before, because as Mr. Webster said, these have been through TRCs and have been approved by the planning board and reviewed by the municipality's professionals. This is the view on Morrow Street. Now, Morrow Street ends up being the only part of this building that really, in my mind, fronts a major street in Orange. And as such, we have glass storefront and retail. But what you also see here is a kind of approach to the building that really begins breaking up a kind of base, which is heavier with brick and glass, and then an upper series of floors that at this view and a couple of other views actually front a street wall of 6 stories. But then in other then from other views, you'll see maintain a kind of base, middle, top, more conventional kind of understanding of organization and form. And so again, this is the South Jefferson facade, and I'll talk a little bit more about the materials. Now, just to kind of ground everyone, we are in District 2 of the Central Valley redevelopment area, and you can see where we are here. This is a zoomed in kind of aerial location. So you see that we have frontage on Nassau Street, Nassau Place, excuse me, Morrow Street and South Jefferson. But a lot of the building is actually on side or rear yards. And it was actually very interesting to kind of denote what is side, what is rear, what is front in a building like this, just because of all the yards that it has, right? Now, there are some existing structures that will be demolished. We have found some houses that are over 100 years old, others that are far more current than that. None of them seem to be contributing. They've been sort of overbuilt and vinyl siding and all this kind of thing. And you can see them here with our site outline just for reference. And then some images here depicting what these look like. And again, they've been stripped of any kind of ornament, vinyl sided, veneer brick, things like that. Now, that said, this is your historic district, and we are in the Orange Valley Historic District, as has been said, and our lots are clearly delineated here, and you can see our little square showing the approximate location of our site in your plan. And then these are this is the survey that delineates the site. So these buildings are slated for demolition as part of this. We have proposed a series of setbacks. Those setbacks do allow for some green space at grade, so some amenity space at grade. And those setbacks are listed here. Now, this is more of a zoning kind of analysis, but we show it just to kind of make sure that the board knows that we have thought a lot about frontage and setback and so forth. I don't need to read all of these key points into the record, but these are the key points that the planning resolution was based on. As Mr. Webster said, we have two buildings. We call them Building A and Building B. Building A is 63,762 square feet. Building B is 195,053 square feet. So the total project is quite large in terms of its coverage, 258,815 square feet. This is a 6-story structure with residential, retail, and garage space, right? There's parking, one-to-one parking, by the way. And we are proposing a total of 54 units in Building A, the smaller building, and 148 units in Building B for a total of 202 residential dwelling units. And you can see the breakdown. We've been careful to integrate a series of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms into this, including some with dens, and think that it's a very, again, integrated mix of unit types that go into this. We have various points of entry, a lot of pedestrian entry, including 2 garages. So you see the red filled triangles are the vehicular entry, and then the red outline triangles are pedestrian access points, both into the buildings from 2 residential lobbies, as well as you see on the cyan portion, where's my mouse? The cyan portion here, which is about 2,000 square feet of retail that we have. We've gone through lighting. I'm going to go through that fairly quickly, trash removal, that sort of thing as well. And then on our first floor plan, which is largely given to parking and lobby space, in addition to that retail, you see that we do have some modest green space that is maintained at grade, which we feel is very important. The upper floors more or less stack. So we have a second floor plan that sets back from that base, and that allows the base to feel heavier. I'll show you that in elevations in a second. Fairly efficient double-loaded corridors, and you can see that bridge that we talked about, which exists on the second floor, is an amenity space. It's got a 615 square foot gym, as well as a 1,095 square foot clubhouse that would be used by both buildings, and it literally soars across Morrow Street, which is quite interesting. Above that, the buildings set back a little bit more, so they do kind of tier up. And again, the double-loaded corridors that are delineated here. We do have a common roof deck that would be granted use to tenants in both buildings. In Building B, the second building, and you can see that here. And that's about almost 3,500 square feet of roof deck, which we feel is great. Now, in terms of the facades, we do, as you can see by the orange dashed lines, have set up a kind of relationship of base, middle, top here, and the top is set back. The base is proud, right? So there's that is a nod toward a kind of historic organization, but that breaks down at the primary street frontages. And we wanted to do that purposefully to be a little bit more playful in the way the building, the colors of the building, and the materials face the street. And you can see that below on the South Jefferson facade here. And I'll talk about these materials more specifically in a second. And then same on the side elevations of the building, where you really can see this kind of organization. And again, the base is always proud, the top floor is always set in, and then we have that kind of series of 4 middle floors that continue. And then differentiated again as we turn the corner at Jefferson, right? We've gone through the exercise of designing enlarged elevations for our storefronts, thinking about that kind of glazing and so forth here, as well as this idea of a planted wall system for the parking. Those of you that have, I know there's a couple of architects on this board, the design of parking garages, you want to try to naturally ventilate them. And so what we have found in our work that these kind of living walls or green walls do very well. They provide a visual kind of buffer, but at the same time allow for air to flow through. And this is largely, so this is a zoomed in elevation. This is largely in that area in between the buildings on Morrow Street. I can go back to the site plan in a second. Now, in terms of the building facades, one of the things that we tried to do here is image these things in day and night, right? So you can begin shifting back and forth and kind of understanding how the building changes through the day, how the building engages natural light and that kind of thing. We're going to primarily talk about that facade on South Jefferson. You can see that is a kind of varied batten system. And what I like very much about that is the batten system has a series of members that are proud from the main facade that are spaced approximately every 1.5 to 2 inches. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like that. This very much, I think, speaks to a kind of more contemporary take on a kind of wood slat kind of system that you might find in a more historic structure, right? And so I think that the treatment of this facade and the Nassau Place facade, which are the kind of main entry points, really seek to do that. We acknowledge they're bigger buildings, but we try to distribute material in a kind of more playful way. So it breaks that kind of base, middle, top organization, whilst also breaking down the scale. So the material members themselves seem like, not seem, but are of a scale that can relate to what may be the remaining older structures in the area. And that's very important to us and something that we feel the building does. Now, in the evening, you find what happens is that yellow-orange kind of material goes more brown, right? But you see the glazing, and what happens with the glazing is it's fairly regular. So this thing that looks varied during the day actually shifts to something that's projecting light out and regularizes, right? So as to kind of call itself out as the building that it is, the scale it is, and so forth, right? And so this is something that's quite important. And you'll notice that the storefronts on Jefferson are all well lit, and the lighting has been specified with members of planning staff and the third-party engineers and planners that the city works with. And then we have, to conclude, a similar kind of strategy on Nassau Place. You see that here. Now, in the meantime, what you're seeing here is Morrow Street, and you're seeing our Sky Bridge here. You're seeing the facades, which are a mix of hardy and stucco. We've talked about those materials already. Those are also in your historic guidelines with some balconies. So that begins to break that kind of plane of the facade. And then you see our green wall at the parking. And again, the main points of entry, these main facades that you enter into the building are more playful. They break down in scale in a more varied kind of way. We still keep that base, we still keep the glass at the base for the entry, but we are again more playful in the way that we're distributing these materials on top of the building. And again, switching back and forth between day and night, you begin to see this idea of the materials, the lighter materials changing color, getting darker, obviously, not reflecting or anything like that. And it's the lighting from inside of the building that projects out and actually suggests the kind of scale of the building, right? And so we're very interested in how that happens through the day. You know, this is a strategy that we've used in many of our buildings, I think, to some success. So that is my presentation. Maybe I'll leave this one up, and thank you for hearing us, and we certainly look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you, Richard. Couple things. How many other projects are you all on the board for right now in Orange?
Me personally,
Yes.
one scheduled, and then there's a series of others as well.
Okay, thank you. A few comments, and then, you know, I have to be careful because I can go on and let other people talk also. But I think overall, you've achieved some of the things that we've been talking about. But I think because we're labeled the Historic Commission, we often get it gets misinterpreted. You know, we kind of see our job as, yes, preserving history, but, you know, rooted in history, not historicity. And so what you guys have done here is presented a modern building that, in my opinion, does a fairly good job of saying, you know, a wink and a nod to those things that are worth giving a wink and a nod to in the Orange architectural vernacular, be it next door, around the corner, or what have you. But it's taking its place as a modern building, you know, in to create a new streetscape. One of the things when I say the shades of gray and black and things like that, it just seems to, those things fall short. They don't seem like they're trying to be something that you'd want to live next door to. This, I think, does a fair job of going in the direction of something modern. Yes, in a historic district, and we all know this area well, around by Libretti's and
Sure.
Arlene Valley. The funny thing is, one of the things I like most about it is you're introducing a green wall, because one of the things about that area, especially on a day like today, it's hot as hell down there. There's very little shade left.
I'm going to go back to that overall area. That was something I meant to. Thank you for saying that. That was something I wanted to say. That it is like a total heat sink there.
Yeah, very much so. So, I mean, you know, my only comment would be if you could add more green wall. I mean, and really kind of, you know, a roof deck. These are things we, you know, and for the record, this is the first time we are all seeing this project. But those are things that we'd like to see more. We're not trying to say everything should look like, you know, ye olde factory in Orange Valley or what have you, with brick or this, but things with some character. And you know, I think this does a very good job of trying to introduce some new ideas as complementary to a historic district, especially one where a good bit of really what made this particular district historic doesn't exist structurally anymore, truth be told.
Right.
So.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I would say, you know, and I mean, we haven't brought this up, but, and you sound like, you know, someone who's been trained in this kind of stuff, if I may. You know, Secretary of Interior standards also dictate, we work in a lot of, like, we're very familiar with NJ SHPO, and we work in a lot of other historic districts and cities. And so we understand the kind of tension. So I appreciate your comments that, if I can paraphrase, new buildings don't have to look like their historic neighbors. They can riff on them. Riff is my word, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
In kind of ways to create some kind of relationship, but you probably know this, but you could never really get people to execute from a craft point of view the quality of those buildings anyway, right? That we're talking about.
Exactly.
So I think it's an important point. So anyway, I thank you for that. I really appreciate your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Mr. Garber, just so you know, as the chairman mentioned, we didn't get your GRO renderings or presentation. So I'm just going to mark that as Exhibit A1 and ask for you to ship over a copy of it.
Of course.
I thought
Sure.
I thought we submitted the entire package. I apologize, Ms. Bauer.
It's probably our problem, so don't apologize, but we definitely, unless somebody, feel free to correct me, but I definitely don't have it, but I followed along.
I will definitely make sure we send an email with all the documents over to whomever, I guess to Ms. Lanier. We can definitely do that.
I would also add, just Mr. Webster, the way that Richard has walked us through this tonight. It's done in such a way where I think it's very easy to understand. It's very clear. The presentation, as you said, you're going to have further projects to come. This is very much a nice benchmark.
I appreciate that.
I agree.
Fortunately, Richard is, I think, the architect of 2 or 3 of the 5 projects that I have, so my life is a lot easier. That's so that works.
Richard, any possibility to add a green wall to the facade we're looking at? Not the street facade, but the one. Let me see. The one that's facing the small bungalow there in your rendering.
You mean on the side yard?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could certainly look at that a little bit. I don't think that that's a huge problem, especially, if you look at the plan, our site plan, the idea is that the green wall exists. You can even see kind of where it is. And I should have said, I don't think I said, but one of the goals here is to treat Moreau almost like a pedestrian plaza. And
Right.
the reason is because the point of
Love
entry of vehicles basically stop here. And so that we can treat these walls so that people walking down Moreau, under our kind of sky bridge, have a certain amount of kind of green. The sidewalks are fairly narrow there, so at least we can do that. My suggestion is we probably could figure out how to put a little, if you could see where I'm circling here, we could probably figure out how to put a little bit of green. I have to look to make sure that my staff isn't texting me saying I'm going to say something that I get them in trouble. But there's some area over here. We'd have to be past the retail, I think.
Right.
And the reason why is because this is alive. It has to breathe, and so it's almost like it clings to a kind of fence or grating as you move up. So I would say past the extent here, I'm sure we can convince our client to add some of it,
Right.
so that you would see it from that view. Yes.
Okay. Jody, Karen, Kathy.
I love this. I have no complaints. Love it.
This is one of the best designs we've seen, and I do like the idea of adding additional green wall. And actually that will, at least it'll be hard to graffiti.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
this.
I'm glad everyone likes it. Thank you.
You sound like you were worried.
It's that, as architects, you know this, you have to put on a certain
Yeah.
amount of confidence, but we, as Mr. Webster said, we had not been before your board before, so
Yeah.
it's nice to know. It sounds like we can work with you guys, so thank you.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. and the thing is that especially down in that area, what we're trying to avoid are buildings that just look like they're plopped, it's so unnecessary with just a few design tweaks. And other towns seem to take care to do that, and agencies, architects, developers going into those towns seem to take care to do that. We'd like to see the same care taken here. So thank you, guys. So I guess, Janine, just a motion to approve this as is, or?
Public hearing.
Okay. Oh, public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Sorry, I don't hear I don't have a hand raised signal.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Can I?
Chair recognizes Mr. Tobia.
Hi, good evening, board. I've been looking forward to this application for two reasons. One, it's obviously a beautiful building. It has that going for it. But I think
Yes,
we should.
Yes, Mr. Tobia, to identify himself and his address and.
My name is Darren Tobia. My address is 24 Columbia Street.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful building, but I think this is also a cautionary tale because we have to figure out why applications are not coming to the HPC in a timely manner, and we have to figure this out before plans for the Orange Memorial Hospital, come to your desk, because
Exactly.
the idea that an applicant can conveniently come to the HPC after the planning board and then not be held to any of your conditions is really unacceptable. I fear that I'm watching the HBC's power slowly be dismantled over the past 2 years. And I would just like to hear from the commission about how to fix this. Is it an administrative thing? Or is it an education thing? Does the commission need to educate the planning board or the zoning board on the proper steps? So that's all I want to say. Congratulations to the applicant. It's a beautiful project. I hope it gets built. Thanks.
Darren, thank you for your comments. Well placed, and just underline, highlight. Short answer to your question is it's a misconception that we're going to be obtrusive, that we're gonna stop projects and stop development. There's a view that a historic commission still in 2024 is a bunch of little old ladies in white tennis shoes and pearls, and who want to see no change happen anywhere. And that's not the case at all. As you've heard, and I hope appreciate from our comments this evening, we want to see good change. We welcome change, but we want to see things that are, as I've said already, something I want to wake up and drive by out of my front door every day and be proud it's in my town. And it doesn't have to look, it doesn't have to look old. It doesn't have to have white columns and a picket fence around it or anything like that. So that's part of it, is as much as we have tried to convince those in authority that we are not, or do we plan to be obstructionist or progress stoppers, we want to work with. I mean, presentations like we got tonight, you 16 people on here should know, this is the first time we have had presentations the caliber of like we've gotten this evening since before COVID.
Exactly.
Now, how much development has happened in this town since COVID?
A lot.
And thank you, Karen. So, this is, and I think, even with our compromise on our first one, Mr. Webster, and Mr. Webster's comments are extremely, appreciated and welcome. And what with Richard Garber just showed right now, I think we can all walk away and go, you know what? That they should walk away and go, that wasn't that bad. The Historic Commission ain't that bad. And, they actually know a little bit of what they're talking about. So
I'm not gonna comment on that.
yeah, so it's yes, Mr. Toby, your comments are well placed, but I would say this to you, please, what you just said to us, you're preaching to the choir. Please say that to your city council representative, to folks at City Hall, whoever will listen, because yeah, they need to hear it. You're preaching to the choir.
Sure.
So.
Well, I will tell you, Mr. Chairman Simmons, that I do appreciate the board, and I do appreciate the conversation, the energy, and direction that they've given us. And we'll work to make sure that all our projects are in sequence going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome news.
Yeah. Any other comments from the public?
A motion to close public comments?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Simmons, second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Wells. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You opposed? There's no other business, no zoning officer approvals, pending business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait,
No,
we
we-
we
have
haven't
to-
acted, Joyce,
we haven't
on the
done a thing yet.
application.
Yeah, motion to, yeah.
Oh, I
Don't leave
just-
Richard hanging like that. He's about to jump through his screen.
You just gave us the best presentation we've heard in years.
All right,
Done.
so is there a motion?
So
To
Janine,
adopt?
motion to adopt, Janine, is all we need, or?
Approve the application as submitted.
Okay, so
Okay.
motion to approve the application, I forget the address, as submitted.
It's
567.
the application of Morrow Street Holdings LLC, 568, 588 Morrow Street, 567, 585 Morrow, and 507 to 515 Jefferson Street.
Okay,
In a
I'll make the
second.
motion to approve.
Second,
Second, Commissioner Light.
yes.
Any opposed? On that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Carroll? Commissioner Dow?
Yes.
Commissioner Light?
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews is absent. Commissioner Morrell? Absent. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes,
Commissioner Velez is absent. Commissioner Wells?
Yes.
Okay, motion approved.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Webster, according to the cover letter that Ms. Marillo sent in, if you could just send me copies of 6 and 7. I have everything else. 6 is the GRO plans or GRO plans, and 7 is the topo, but I have 1 through 5.
Okay. And how does it work? Is there a resolution of memorialization? Does the board affirm it? Is it the same process as planning board?
Correct.
Okay, so you'll circulate a draft and then
I
we can-
absolutely will. Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Board members, thank you again for your time and look forward to working with you a little closer and a little bit earlier in our process. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Good night. A motion to adjourn?
Motion,
Second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Light, second by Commissioner Wells. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned at 8:55 PM. Have a good night.
Fabulous. Everybody have a good night.
All right, later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
How do I get up?